First, we talked transit with Janno Lieber, then Jack Schlossberg, yes, that Jack Schlossberg, on why he wants to join the family business. The Point starts right now. MTA Chair Janno Lieber has either the best job in the world or the worst job, depending on the weather and whether the trains are running on time. So the reason I start with this is because as I was coming to work, a friend of mine called to complain that the trains were late coming from Queens, and wanted to know, when are you going to weatherproof the subway system so that it's not doesn't respond to rain, heat, cold, and other things that make the signals slow down?
Hey, listen, I'm not a magician, but all I can tell you is we've been making the investments that give us a better chance of dealing with those kinds of conditions. And service has improved. It's not, God knows it ain't perfect, and every day is a battle. And the folks who run the system, on many cases on old technology, are doing a good job. But we have upgraded the signals. We are investing finally in all that stuff that breaks down, that sometimes some of it came from 100 years ago, like the power and the structures and the signals. We're giving people a shot at a better commute, and it's delivering.
Well, you know, I feel like I have to bring up the fast forward plan that was originally came about because Andy Byford and Train Daddy in 2018, where he said we're going to fix most of the signals in 10 years. Where are we on that?
Yeah, listen, Andy's plan, I think, was very aspirational, I would say. There's no way to fix the entire signal system in an overnight time frame.
Especially with an old system.
Yeah, with an old system, and you got to keep the system running. You can't, just turn it off, which is different about New York. We run 24/7, 365, so you can't just turn the thing off and redo it, which is what they've done in many parts of the world. But in the lines where we have redone the signals, 7 line, L train, Queens Boulevard line, all of a sudden you see dramatic improvements in on-time performance and in throughput. Marcia, as you know, this weekend we are switching the F and the M, 2 lines where you came to this last week, the press conference on this, 2 lines where, because of the crossing maneuvers that our ancestors in transit left us, all of a sudden it holds up throughput, it causes lots of delays. We're switching the lines. Riders are going to get a more reliable commute and more rides.
So what we're talking about is the F and the M that are going to switch. But as I was sitting at that press conference, I was saying to myself, why did they do the original plan to begin with? Like, why were they having the line switch, and how did it take so long to get them to not switch?
Well, so much of our system is the result of the fact that these things were built 100 years ago in many cases, and also there were 3 separate subway systems that all got combined. And making them truly one system has taken a long time. Now, the benefit of the F&M switch is people on the stations that are near and close to Manhattan are now faced with trying to get on a train that is full when it pulls into their station. They're going to get much less crowded trains. And the folks in Queens, many of whom live in NYCHA housing, are going to have better access to shopping in Queens. That is, they don't want to go to Bloomingdale's, which is where their train goes now.
Because of the change in the stops.
Yeah, and because we're eliminating the crossing maneuvers that actually cause trains to have to sit in station while another one crosses in front of them. This is long overdue. We're the guys who are finally making some of the changes that, frankly, I do think you're right, probably are a little overdue.
So, a lot of people, when you have change, they say, we don't like change. Yeah. So are you getting any resistance, any pushback from your riders?
There's always somebody whose commute is going to be changed. You can go out on a platform and find somebody. Nobody likes to have routine.
Everybody likes to hate the MTA.
Well, and also, there's just changes. Listen, commuting is part of our routine, and changing it has impact. But if it's going to save time for everybody, give everybody more reliable service, and allow us to run more service, what we've been doing. Look, people don't like change, but congestion pricing, you talked to me about it 100 times, huge success. We've brought back ridership. Everybody gave up on New York and Midtown, and no one's coming back. And all of a sudden, this past week, we had 2 days in a row of the highest ridership since COVID. We've had the best service. The safety, the police commissioner announced it. Best November in the history of the system in terms of low crime, much lower crime. We have made some huge progress. And I got to say, I've had the support of Governor Hochul at every step to both grow service and make it better. That's made a difference.
So we have to talk about the elephant in the room, or the elephant on the system, which is the push by the new mayor-elect to have free bus service, which is not something you're a big fan of. Why not?
No, listen, what I'm trying to get people to hear is the number one response I have to the mayoral election is, number one, I'm thrilled that transit was a huge piece of the discussion. Number two, I am thrilled that joining a super pro-transit Governor Hochul in Albany, will be a very pro-transit mayor who grew up riding the system and talks about making transit better. That's where I start the discussion with the new mayor and his team. Thrilled that we have so much positivity about transit. This is a guy who actually knows the system. Now, are we going to have to work out some mechanics of what we all want to do to make the system better and more affordable? Yes, but you got to lean into the fact that we've got a mayor now who really digs the MTA mass transit system and is committed to making it better. So
what are the problems that you see with the idea of free buses? Like what kind of problems would that put on the system?
Well, look, what I've said, and I'm not, there's no point going into it again and again, is my own view is something of that scale probably needs to be studied a lot. We studied congestion pricing for 5 years. We ought to study this. We at the MTA are committed to affordability. Look at what we've done. We have kept fare increases down to 2% a year when inflation was much higher. We have dramatically cut the cost of riding Metro North and Long Island Railroad, the commuter railroads, inside the city, and have attracted all kinds of new riders to those railroads, and they're saving time. And we've kept the Long Island Railroad and Metro North monthly tickets cheaper than they were before COVID. So we're committed to affordability. And I know that this new mayor obviously is committed to affordability, and we're going to have to work out ideas of how to accomplish it.
But you've also talked about the idea of making things more affordable by making income-based fare system. We have something like that now with the Fair Fare program.
Yeah.
But right now, people who apply for the Fair Fare have to make a family of four has to earn $46,000 a year or less, and they get a 50% cutback. Is there any way to include more people in the Fair Fare program?
It's a great idea. It's something the governor has talked about as one idea for addressing affordability that she really is high on. It's something that we've been pushing for some years now. The city runs that Fair Fares program. They have kept the eligibility so low that a person who is working 40 hours a week on minimum wage doesn't qualify. Their income is too high. It's time to make sure that people who are what we call the working poor, who are really working their tails off to make ends meet, playing by the rules and all that, that they get this benefit. So raising the income threshold for eligibility on Fair Fares, that's exactly something that we think we ought to do.
Do you have a number you're thinking about how much you would rise?
People have talked about moving it. It's now at 150% of the federal poverty level, which is, of course, way too low to be applicable to New York. People have talked about moving it up to, 200% of the federal poverty level to include more people in that. We think that's an interesting idea. And one of the points that I think in favor of that approach is it would benefit people who ride the subway as well as the bus, who need the help, not depending on whether they're choosing one mode or another.
So what about the idea? Some of the things I've thought about is this. You always go to business community and ask them to pay a mobility tax or this tax or that tax. What about the idea of certain businesses paying the subway fare for their employees 5 days a week?
Yeah, and
is that an idea that Albany would ever think about?
This is kind of that. Honestly, Marcia, that's kind of what happened in the last couple of years. When we came out of COVID, like many transit systems in the United States, ridership had dipped and the revenue was in the toilet, right? So we had to say, what do we do? Hochul said to me, I want to keep service going because I have talked to the business. She had talked to the business community and I had spoken to them as well, and they wanted really strong everyday service so they could get their people to come back to work. And when Hochul put together the budget deal that enabled the MTA to keep stay in good financial condition and continue to run more service, the business community went along with the idea of a little bit more payroll tax. That's how they decided to contribute to maintaining the subway system, and it's made a difference. We've never had a business community that's more supportive of transit than we have now.
But what about a plan where they say to you, or say to me, Marcia, if you're going to commute 5 days a week, here's what we're going to give you a little extra in your paycheck to pay for the, the 10 rides.
It's an idea. Listen, a lot of companies, I think for your viewers know, a lot of companies provide these pre-tax benefits that are under federal law that come from your employer. So I think a lot of employers are trying to do something along the lines of what you're saying. Let me tell you, the pre-tax benefit is now applicable on Omni, that you can use your transit benefits to get the ride on the new system. It's a big thing that's coming up, is that we're saying goodbye to the MetroCard. We're going all in on Omni. Another huge success story for the MTA. We're at 92% acceptance, use of tap and ride. We never thought we were going to be this far along.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later. We're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. Jack Schlossberg recently posted on Instagram that, quote, politics can be awesome, but it didn't used to be this whack. What did he mean by that, and why is he running for Congress? So why is politics whack? Well, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Marcia. It's an honor to be here on your show. In the past, politics, I know this to be true, and I feel connected to our past. I feel generations that came before us, your ancestors and mine, built this country based on a belief that we could do big things and that the government was capable, confident, and cared about people. That when you called up your representative, you might actually talk to a human being and they would listen to your concerns. And our country turns 250 years old this year, and it's coming at an interesting moment in time. In the past, we believed in America. Right now, we have a president who wants to drive the number of people who believe in the government's ability to solve problems down as low as he can, because he wins when nobody believes in anything anymore. I reject that. I don't accept that. I believe politics can be a noble profession, that it can actually deliver for people. And I see a future where politics can deliver and people really do care.
So if you got elected, would people get to talk to human beings if they called your office?
Absolutely. I'm so proud that we have thousands of people who want to volunteer for our campaign. I believe that listening to voters is something that I've been doing since I announced 3 or 4 weeks ago. And talking to people in this city shows me that people want to be engaged in politics. People believe that politics can work like it used to in the past, and that in the future, we can build a country where we believe in doing big things again.
So you are joining a race that has, I don't know, 10 people, 12 people, it keeps changing, but a lot of people want this job. So what made you decide that this was the race, your first race was going to be in this pool of all kinds of people who want the job, and why would you be better?
I think it's great that people are running. I think it's great to have a competitive primary. I'm excited to throw my hat in the ring and compete against people who I think are also great, who have served the city with distinction and have great records. I think that we now need to elect a new kind of politician whose energy and style matches the moment that we're in, because it's not good enough now to just know your policy. And I went to school. I'm the only candidate who has released specific policy plans, 3 so far, just in the last 3 weeks. And we need to elect people who can speak specifically, clearly, and engage people, bring them into the political process. And I think that New York 12 deserves a representative who understands the political moment we're in and how to deliver for the district.
Well, we have a situation where we just elected a mayor, a young mayor who's 34 years old. He ran when he was 33. And there seems to be a move towards a generational change in this country with what we're looking for. We're looking for new and people who are willing to think outside the box. So do you think you're in that mold, that you are willing to think outside the box and you have new ideas? Like, for example, I know you have a new housing plan.
Yes.
So, I mean, is that where you're coming from?
Well, let me tell you what I see as a problem for our party. Democratic Party we've got great ideas, great policies. I'm a Democrat through and through. I believe in our history as a champion for minority communities. We have an amazing economic record to run on. The Democratic Party is competent and capable, but we've been speaking in vague abstractions. And so my campaign is about releasing specific plans to address specific problems and actually make concrete steps toward fixing them. So yes, our housing plan, the Jack Housing Fairness Plan, it's got 3 pillars to put a roof over fairness, 3 pillars for renters, 1, 2, owners, and 3, public housing, NYCHA. So I could tell you a little bit about it.
Please.
For renters, just like the mortgage interest deduction allows people who borrow and own against their homes that they own to deduct a portion of their interest payments from their federal taxes. Renters deserve the same thing. There is an affordability crisis here. More than half of renters in New York are rent burdened. It means they spend more than 1/3 of their income.
So was that a rent freeze, or you just want to find another way to get the money?
No, we want to make it so that there's no distinction in the way our tax code treats people who are renting from people who are borrowing against their homes. Renters should have that same option. To deduct a part of their rent from their federal income taxes, that's going to put thousands of dollars back into people's pockets so they can spend it on things like childcare.
So basically what you're saying is you should get a tax credit if you're a renter.
Why not? If you're a renter, why are you're paying all this money into a system and you're not getting anything back from it? You're not getting any equity in your home, and you're contributing to the city's growth, but all that money is going down the drain.
So what would you do for NYCHA residents?
NYCHA residents, I'm announcing, if elected, I would try to form the Fix It Now caucus. Because I go and I talk to NYCHA residents, and they have a backlog of repairs that are not getting fixed. You know that it takes more than a year on average for a maintenance request to get filled? That's unacceptable. People deserve to live in safe, dignified, habitable living conditions in this amazing city. So we would try to Fix It Now caucus would focus on direct repairs, timely improvements, and maintenance accountability.
What do you do about landlords who are worried about they're not going to get enough of a rent increase so that they're not going to be able to make the changes, the fixes that the apartments need?
Well, that brings me to my plan, our 3rd pillar for property owners. This is a really important issue because owning property in New York should not come with a federal penalty, and it does. It's called the SALT cap.
Right.
The cap on SALT deductions is killing blue states, especially like New York. We contribute more into the federal government than we get out. We're subsidizing the growth of other states. We need a tax code that's fair, and the SALT cap at $40,000 is not fair. And New York Democrats, Republican Democrats in the House, they got nothing from the president. The president was willing to make the cap higher.
And that was really hard to even get what they got.
That's right. And so we need to focus on this, turn up the pressure, and I'm calling for a full repeal of the SALT cap, full stop. It's completely unfair, and this would encourage people to stay in New York, property owners to stay in New York, and would make a real difference for people who own their homes.
So how much would they be able to deduct? Not the $40,000 cap right now. How much?
We would want a full repeal of the SALT cap.
Total.
Yeah, well, I mean, based on your income, it's still tied to income levels. So we would call for a full repeal of the SALT.
But here you have a problem where if you have a Republican-controlled legislature, either the House or the Senate, it's not going to happen.
Well, I think that if we elect exciting Democrats who have energy behind them, who understand the politics of this moment, we will win back the House.
Really?
I really believe that. I really believe the Democratic Party is on the up and up. The Republicans are against the rope. Nobody likes what's going on. People are struggling to afford to live in New York City. Nobody likes that, left or right.
But what about the country?
Same thing around the country. Purple states, red states, people are feeling the pinch of this president's regressive tax code, and people don't like it. The elections last month showed that. People are voting blue, and the Democrats are going to take back the House, but we need to elect a new type of candidate because it can't be business as usual.
We're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. I haven't used a MetroCard to take the bus or subway in years. I use my watch right here to tap in, but in a matter of weeks, the MetroCard will go bye-bye and the Omni system will take over. Will New Yorkers miss the card? Well, they're weighing in on your point. Which is better, the MetroCard or Omni?
I think the MetroCard's better.
MetroCard all the way.
The Omni works good for me.
The Omni.
Why?
It's easier to use.
Omni,
How come?
because it's on my phone.
I like Omni
Because?
because it's a lot easier. The one drawback is that you never know how much money you've got on it.
MetroCard,
How come?
because it reminds me of New York.
MetroCard or Omni?
I don't even know what the other one is.
Oh, the MetroCard, definitely.
How come? I've got a couple more.
Because I think it's the Omni, you're not getting the unlimited rides. You have to do like 12 swipes before you can get out. It makes no sense.
Because you get transfers. Omni don't give you transfers.
On the Omni card, you can't even check your balance.
And Omni has been known to overcharge.
Do you remember a time before MetroCards?
No.
Oh, before MetroCards, the coins?
Oh, sure, tokens.
I didn't like tokens either, but they were simpler. Like the laundromat when you use the quarter instead of a card now, so.
I still have some.
Tokens?
I was born in the city in 1960. I grew up in Brooklyn. I've been here 65 years.
How much was a token then?
About 20 cents.
I remember when tokens were 15 cents.
15 cents?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's going to be $3 to ride the subway in
Well,
January.
I'm a senior. I get half price.
Do you remember a time before the MetroCard?
I go back to 10 cents for the subway.
10 cents?
I'm old.
So the MetroCard's going away at the end of the year. Would you miss it?
No.
Not at all.
Why?
Because the Omni card is much easier.
Use my credit card.
Okay.
It's faster.
Haven't used it for 10 years.
So the MetroCard is going away at the end of the year. Will you miss it?
Yes, I will.
Why?
Because it made more sense to me.
Sure, I am going to miss it. I miss it already. But we have to adapt.
I guess I'll get used to the new, you know. We adjust, we're New Yorkers.